Hello students, welcome to the week of August 24th. If you can believe it, we are almost to the end of Module 1. So this week our main focus will be on your summary and response exploratory essay, which will be due Friday, August 28th by 11:59 p.m. on Canvas. As you know, you need to go into modules to navigate the course this week and every week. I did make some changes in here in the hopes that it will make navigating the course a little more intuitive by requiring you to view the module overview objectives and links to episodes and readings before you can click on anything else. And then I also went through and duplicated links to the material contained here so that when you've looked at the overview, if you start clicking, it's moving you through in order. So we'll play around with that. I want to see if I can up course engagement. I have noticed, and I sent out a message to this effect, that not everyone is watching the weekly videos, and I think you're maybe missing out on some help. Maybe you feel like you don't need it, but I might say something in a video that's useful to helping you rethink how you're thinking about some of the assignments. So, that said, I did put up, as promised, a video tutorial on citing a podcast in MLA style. I did not, however, put one up of me citing the podcast in MLA style. I decided instead to go, this is more sort of theoretical, right? So, like, here's a podcast. I decided rather than show you exactly how to do it, I would show you how to cite a podcast and then see if you can apply that to citing our podcast. Part of this was born of necessity. I went home last week because, to be completely honest with you, my granny died of COVID in a nursing home. So please do be wearing your masks. I'm telling you that, A, to remind you to wear your masks, and B, to say, something that was born out of necessity, something that I did because I did not have time to create that content last week as I had hoped to, I think actually turned into a good teaching decision, which is I shouldn't be generating the citation for you. I should show you how to do it, which you can locate here on the video tutorial for citing a podcast in MLA style, okay? And then you can attempt to follow those directions for our paper. That said, because I did not provide that content for you, I'm going to be a little bit more lenient on how strictly I grade your MLA citations for this paper. Okay, as we move along, I'll be a little bit more stringent with that as I provide you more instruction. Okay, now, this week, all you have to do is listen to episode 4, The Confessions, and then you do not have a discussion post this week. And y'all, I'm sorry, I had to add a Hamilton meme because I'm a dork and I can't help myself. But I thought this was appropriate for the assignment page. Anyway, if you haven't watched Hamilton, you got to. It's so good. Anyway, well, okay, there are also some arguments that some of it's problematic, but we can have that discussion in another post if anybody wants to do that, if anybody feels strongly about Hamilton one way or the other. Okay, so, summary and response exploratory paper. If you did not watch last week's video, I primarily go over how to do that last week because I wanted to give you plenty of time to work on it. I am in the process of finishing grading your discussion posts from last week, which gave you an opportunity to practice objective summary. Okay, objective means it does not include your opinion. It's just the content. Okay, it's just here's what happens in this podcast. Okay, many of you did well. I'm still grading some. You want to make sure that you take that feedback into consideration. For some of you, I found myself writing quite often to remember not to comment on the material in the objective summary itself, because I think that the easiest way for you to organize is going to be to first give an objective summary and then to respond to the material. Now, some of the resources I showed you or that are available earlier in the module do discuss alternative organizations. If one of those works for you and you can fit all of it in, I'm happy for you to do that. But if you're unsure about how to do this assignment, I think the easiest method is objective summary first, okay, and then response. And that's what my rubric suggests. That's what the instructions here suggest. But I will not take off if you do it a different way successfully. I'm just saying this is the path of least resistance, okay? But if you're an advanced writer and you want to try something a little bit different, like you're weaving summary and response throughout, it works, it works. I'm not going to penalize you for it. But I would not attempt that if you're not sure, okay? So I've put your instructions here, right? Begin with an objective summary. In other words, free of your opinion, okay? Episodes 1 through 3. I'm not making you include episode 4 because you're just listening to that this week. You have to be selective about most important details. One student, very appropriately, I think this is a great question, asked, what is a main detail? And that is a good question because, right, that depends on what you're trying to do. I would say the main points of each episode are those which are crucial to your understanding of what that episode is trying to get across. Okay, what is the main idea of that episode? And then what does the reader of your paper need to know about what goes on in that episode in order to understand that main point? Okay, the titles of each episode should be helpful with that. And Madeline Barron's introduction might be helpful with that as well. Okay, and then in the second part of your paper, you get a chance to respond, right? And I've listed some questions here for you. I'm not going to go into detail because I did cover this in last week's video as well, but those should help get you started on, okay, what do I think about this? I want to re-emphasize you don't need to commit to one position on the podcast or the issues raised in it just yet. You just need to have a central focus, right? I want to talk about, in my response, I really want to focus on the way the reporter approaches witnesses or people that she's interviewing. I want to focus on Doug Evans' conduct, right? Like you may have a particular focus. Maybe you want to talk about whether or not you think Curtis Flowers is guilty or innocent. These questions are not exhaustive, meaning you can answer your own sets of questions. This is just to get you thinking about like what kinds of things would go in a response section. Okay? Don't forget to use the rubric. Again, this should be fixed by Friday, and if it's not, obviously I will accept late papers. I'll turn it in. It's giving me all kinds of trouble. Be sure to consult the rubric as you're writing. You know, it tells you exactly how I'm going to grade it. It's a great resource for thinking about how you feel about your paper. I would even suggest maybe doing some self-assessment. You know, okay, let me read my paper and say, okay, did I do this? Did I do this? What would I give myself? And I think that's a good kind of check for you. Okay. I went back farther than I meant to. Okay. Another resource on citing in MLA style. If you click on that, you'll need to, as I told you last week, scroll all the way down to citing a podcast or podcasts. Okay. Finally, a couple of small matters. When you are referring to Madeline Barron, once you have said her name once, reporter Madeline Barron, make sure you're spelling it correctly. It's B-A-R-A-N, I believe, right? Check me on that. I saw some Madeline Brown. I saw some just Madeline, right? Once you've said Madeline Barron, reporter Madeline Barron, it is an academic writing convention to then just use the person's last name if you're talking about an author, a journalist, that sort of thing. Okay, so Madeline Barron and then thereafter Barron. For the folks in the podcast, I would personally say their whole name once and then refer to them by their last names. I think that's more formal and in line with academic writing, but I'm not going to penalize that per se. But I do want you to be aware of that convention, okay? It's not on my rubric, so I can't really grade it. But I can take down if you're misspelling people's names. It's there on the podcast page, right? The main podcast page. So even if you're listening on your phone or something, you know, you can always go to the podcast's webpage, right, and work through there and find spellings and such, okay, for Tardy Furniture, for Various Witnesses, for Madeline Barron, all that kind of thing, okay. Also, if you haven't been looking at these, there's a wealth of resources here that may become even more interesting and important to you as you progress through the course and start developing an argument about the case. I think, okay, yeah, B-A-R-A-N. Yeah, I found it. So make sure you're checking your spellings there. But these pages, as we move through the class, may become even more useful to you as you're sort of, especially when we get to the position essay, when you can maybe use some of this as evidence, okay? That's all I have for you this week. I do not accept drafts via email, but you can set up an appointment with me, and I have lots of availability. You can see my office hours listed on our homepage. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 1:30 to 3:30, okay? All you would need to do to get a draft review of your summary and response essay is to email me and say, Dr. B, can you please meet with me? Well, and if it's during office hours, you can contact me right then, 1:30 to 3:30, and say, hey, can you look at my paper? And we will get on either chat on Canvas or, gosh, does chat even show up for you? Oh, it doesn't look like, oh yeah, chat on Canvas, or we can do it via email, or we can do it, we can set up a Zoom meeting. I can read through it and go over it with you live like that. So during office hours, you don't even need to make an appointment. You can just, during that time, shoot me an email, message me on here, and I will respond, and we'll go through that draft together. If it's outside of office hours, all you have to do, again, is send me an email. But don't send your paper in your email and say, can you please review this? No, we have to meet in real time for me to review your paper. Does that make sense? In other words, I have so many students that I think you're going to get the best feedback if it's right then, right there. We go through it line by line together. And that it gives you more ownership of your writing. I'm not an editing service, right? I am your professor, and I'm trying to get you to think critically about your writing and think about the choices you're making as writers. And I think that's better done synchronously, as in we talk through your paper rather than me just, okay, here's what I think, and send it back. To me, that latter approach, that second approach, is more what is appropriate for when it's time for assessment, which is when you turn your papers in. Okay, so week 4? Yes, week 4. And there'll be a week 4 video right up here in just a second when I finish making this one, right? All you have to do is listen to the confessions. You don't have a discussion post this week, but you want to stay in on track with finishing In the Dark. And then your summary and response exploratory paper is due this Friday, August 28th by 11:59 p.m. If you have any questions, I'm right here. I am online more than I should be. But especially 1:30 to 3:30 Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you can catch me online, and I will be happy to help you. I hope you have a great week. I hope you all stay safe, wear your masks, and I'll see you online.